Que bueno, mi gente. Calix Boxing here. I believe I am live. Hit that sub button for nightly boxing videos. Wanted to do a live stream tonight and plenty of news in the boxing world tonight, but wanted to do this video first and foremost. Shane Mosley retired from boxing this week. Um, Finally, 45 years old. And this goes to my saying is that generally speaking, boxing retires fighters and fighters don't retire from boxing. I mean, boxing does it to them. He was still talking about fighting the young kid from Russia, Korbanov, and going on a tour, and he was going to promote that fight, and he was going to beat the young kid, and he still had 4 or 5 years left in him. And we're talking about a 45-year-old guy with 60 fights under his belt who is well past his prime. I mean, this guy is a guy who's been washed up for, almost a decade now. But that being said, I want to talk more about the good memories I have from Mosley, because this is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I admire the hell out of this guy and the resume he put up. I mean, you're talking about at least 16 elite fights he fought in his career. I mean, just think of some. He fought De La Hoya twice. He fought Vernon Forrest twice. He fought Winky Wright twice. He fought Vargas twice. Collazo, Cotto, Mayorga twice. Margarito, Mayweather, Pacquiao, and Canelo. And Mayweather, Pacquiao, Canelo were, of course, late in his career, well past his prime. But my favorite memory of Mosley, I have a lot of good ones. Obviously, the 2 fights with De La Hoya, those are 2 of my favorite fights of modern boxing history. I mean, 2 great fights between 2 great fighters in their prime. I mean, 2 great fighters in their prime. There's a revisionist history going on with these stupid boxing fans these days on Oscar De La Hoya, the whole fishnets thing and whatnot. But De La Hoya was a savage, just a savage. And you're talking about De La Hoya in his prime, and Mosley was right there with him, beat him twice, close decisions. And of course, Mosley was doping at the time, which read into it whatever you like. I mean, quite frankly, I don't care. It happened. But they had the 4 tough losses, 2 to Vernon Forrest and 2 to Winky Wright. Just tough stylistic matchups for him, and those were sandwiched in between the De La Hoya fights. But also, I remember the Cotto loss, because Cotto at the time was undefeated. I believe Cotto was 30-0. That was Madison Square Garden, and I forgot who it was who said fighting. I don't know if that was Malignaggi or whoever said it, who said fighting Cotto in Madison Square Garden is like fighting the devil in hell. And Mosley went in there, and he was competitive. He was competitive in that fight. He was right there and came on late in that fight. But that was when Cotto was a killer robot. And you're talking about Mosley was 14 years into his career at that point and was right there with him. But the night I'll always remember about Mosley, 2009, the Margarito fight. And you got to remember, Margarito's coming off the big win against Cotto, which of course we know now he was loaded up on plaster in his glove, had bricks in his gloves in the Cotto fight, allegedly. Allegedly. But of course, Nassim Richardson is Shane Mosley's trainer that night and catches Margarito and his trainer trying to put basically bricks in their gloves with the plaster. And so they catch him doing that. We get that news before the fight. And then Mosley comes in and proceeds to just whoop Margarito's ass. And like I said, Margarito at the time was one of the most avoided fighters in boxing. I mean, it was a nightmare at welterweight. I mean, just pound for pound, one of the most avoided. If you look division by division, he was one of the most avoided fighters in boxing. And Mosley just went in there and showed everybody the blueprint and just destroyed him. Just absolutely just whooped his ass. And that changed the whole narrative on Margarito. That was the beginning of the downfall of Margarito. He could no longer fight with plaster in his gloves, was suspended. Like I said, Mosley showed everybody the blueprint. And Margarito took a lot of damage in that fight, to where did a lot more damage, and then Cotto finished off what was left of Margarito. But Mosley started that. So that's one of my great memories from Margarito, is just punishing the cheater that night, just punishing him. And um, just that alone made me a fan. But one of the great fantasy matchups in modern boxing history, in my opinion, is Mosley. And Mosley fought Mayweather late in his career at 147, just a different time. But one of the great fantasy matchups to me would have been Mayweather and Mosley, early 2000s at 135. Both of them in their prime, fighting at 135. To me, that's one of the great fantasy matchups. I wish we could have seen that. And just what a hell of a fight that would have been. And just going back once again to early 2000s, when he fought those two fights against De La Hoya, I mean, those were just great fights. And that was boxing at its best. You know, that's two guys in their prime. They're each other's equal at the time. And just going at it. And it turned into a firefight, and it was high-speed chess. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And Mosley was every bit De La Hoya's equal at the time. And, of course, De La Hoya, when it's all said and done, is on a higher level than Mosley, in my opinion. But, and speaking of that, that's another thing to address here. If a fighter sticks around for too long, like Mosley, he had to retire at 45 due to injuries. He said he went in to get bone spurts removed in his elbow, and it went bad, and he has to retire. But even retiring at 45, he wanted to fight till he was 50, which is just crazy talk. But retiring at 45, later in his career, he's still fighting on well past his prime. Losses to Mayweather, Pacquiao, Canelo, and then losses even after that to guys he shouldn't even he had no business losing to, because he was fighting well past his prime. Shouldn't have been in the ring anymore. But does that take away from the legacy if they stick around too long? Like look at Roy Jones. If Roy Jones retires after the Ruiz win at heavyweight, I mean, what do you have him all time? Got to be top 10, right? Now where do you have him? After all these losses, after another 15 years of fighting, after that, after many knockout losses, where do you have Roy now? I mean, it has to affect how you rank guys all time, right? So I like to remember the Mosley of the De La Hoya fights. I like to remember the Mosley of turning back the clock against Margarito, just a perfect matchup for him. And even in 07, challenging Cotto and beating Vargas twice. I think that was back in 06. Like I said, he had this tough stylistic matchup against Forrest and Wright in those 4 fights. But I like to remember the good times. But there's no question that these past 10 years took a toll on him as a fighter, but also took a toll on his legacy, to where, yeah, he could have went down as, I don't have him, but now you have to drop him a little bit. That being said, let's focus on the good times of Mosley. He is retiring. Well done, champ. Great career, and hopefully enjoy retirement. You know, I hope he's able to enjoy his retirement, and gave us many good memories. Gave me many good memories. I'll speak for myself as a boxing fan. I'm out. Peace.